long break of programming from the museum. And today's program is from the kitchen display, or domestic sciences. So we have a number of things to show, but first of all, I would like to mention that we will do another program tomorrow, because as you know, we are doing programming from WLTN. And there was one week when we first started, about 3 weeks ago, where we ended up with a technological glitch. We did not have the, good, it's the phone ringing, we did not have the password to get us on. So the program that we did was on a counterfeiting ring in the town of Littleton back in the 1860s. So if you check in tomorrow at 10:30, I'll be doing this from my home because I like doing this from my home. But anyway, I have the article here, and I will tell you about the counterfeiting ring. So let's start with the domestic, I call it domestic science corner. So this is really rather an interesting corner, a lot of neat things to see. First of all, the chair in which I am sitting and the table here actually came from the Charles Eastman house, which was built in...
I gotta let Janet.
Okay, in 1884. And one of our other volunteers is coming in, and the door must be locked upstairs. So it was, and we know now the Eastman house is now known as the community house. This table and these 4 chairs were in the kitchen, and it was used by the domestics, because I don't think you found the Eastman eating many meals in the kitchen. Just a little bit of information about what I'm sitting on. So this is 1884 right here. So a couple of things I wanted to show. We're always getting donations. People give us items that really are pretty fascinating. We're relatively picky about what we get because we don't have an awful lot of room here. So it really has to be part of Littleton history. First thing, how many of you remember glass milk bottles? Remember glass milk bottles? I do too. All right, now, let's see. All right, and you remember the glass milk bottles that the cream used to rise to the top. And when you got it, before you used it, you always used to shake it to mix the cream into the milk. Sometimes you would actually skim off the cream and use it in your morning coffee. This is a very unusual milk bottle. If you notice, it has this funny neck. What would happen is the cream would fill this. So you didn't really have to do much separating on your own. The milk would be here, cream would rise up in here, and we actually have the whole set. If you notice, we have the ladle that goes inside, and you would ladle off your cream from your milk. Isn't that way cool? So we're estimating, my guess is this has to go back to the 1920s, 1930s. Not seen any of these, and it just went in, but that's okay. It comes out just as easily as it falls in. So I wanted to show you this milk bottle because it's really a very good item. Very cool. Now, another thing, sitting at this table, we have a set of china, and I have some information. The china is from, it's Johnson Brothers China, okay? And Johnson Brothers were from England, and the pattern is called Pareek, P-A-R-E-E-K, and it's gold, and it has a nice, looks like a Greek key design around it. But if you notice, this cup has 2 handles, and this made us a wee bit crazy about why would they make a teacup? And we have a whole set of them, by the way. They're all here. We have a few more in storage. These are coming in well, Glenn? All right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we did a little research. This is a bullion cup. So part of having a many-course meal, you would often start off with a soup or a clear broth, bouillon. So it would be put on your saucer, and you would drink it thusly. Well, you would put it in your mouth. If I did that, I'd spill bouillon all over my lap. But anyway, this is called a bouillon cup, Perique, and it is about, this dates back to probably the turn of the 20th century. So I thought that was really kind of cool. Had to share that. Now another thing I wanted to show you. I brought this out, sometimes I will do programming at the River Glen. Once when it opens up, I will once again do programming at the River Glen. And you can see the inside of it, you can see the top, there's this part here. And what you can't see is probably right up in here. It looks like there's holes in it, and you probably won't be able to see it. But if you don't,
Yeah, you can.
Take
Yep.
my word that there's holes in it. All right. And what this is before baby food. And you can before baby food. Oh yeah. All right. What mom would do, what mother would do, they would take vegetables and they would mash them really well, mix it with a lot of milk, and turn it into a giant liquidy mush. And this here, the baby would suck on it like a nipple, like drinking out of a bottle. And this is how they would start getting into solid foods. Now we go to the store, we buy baby food. And I remember when my sons were small, how many of you had a food grinder that you could take your family food, put it in it, you kind of like press down, there was a grindy thing, and all this mashed stuff, all the mashed food came to the top. You mixed it with a little broth if you were having stew, and that's how the children, once when they could go on more solid, that's what children wanted. Now, very interesting piece. I've got to tell you this. I came across a little bit of research. All right, this teapot, excuse me. And you notice they both have spouts. Do you know what the original purpose of the spout was? It is supposed to represent like feeding, like the nipple. And that's why they did these in this shape. That's why they're made in this shape. I did a little research on YouTube and came across a great antique channel. And I thought, that's pretty good. So we have a teapot, and then we have a child's, and it's called a feeding cup. And I think it was also a Pabst cup. I'm not quite sure. Okay, but I think that's what it was called. But kind of a neat thing. And I had more people, when I brought this to River Glen, I've had people come down, and I will hide. I have the label here, and I'll hide it. And I'll go, oh, do you know what this is? I go, yeah, it's for Creed. Or it's a little teapot. No. But it's great to play. Guess what this is? All right? Now, another thing I'd like to mention, let's see, where am I? How many of you remember one of these? So, toaster. We have the cord. I'm not going to plug it in because I'll be electrocuted and probably end up burning down the opera house. But it is a toaster. I remember when I was a kid, back in the early days of electricity, when our regular pop-up toaster would die, my grandmother had one of these. And what you do, I bet you a lot of folks out there watching this know exactly how it worked. You put your bread here. These here, there's a heating element, would turn red. You would take, flip it over like that. You put another slice in here, flip it over, and you'd wait and see just a little wisp of smoke, which means it's toasting. Then you would bring them down, flip them over, put them up again, wait until a little wisp of smoke, toasting, take them down. With any luck, you didn't burn your toast. But if it burnt, how many of you remember what we used to do with it? Pick up your toast, blacken toast,
And
take a
scrape it.
knife, and scrape the black off. Anyone responding to that, Glenn?
No,
Not yet? Oh, they
not
will.
yet. We had one very similar to that predated it, and it, with no electricity, it sat on top of the wood stove.
We had one also, it was my grandmother's. It used to sit on top of the stove. Yep, and I don't have one of those down here. Now, here's an interesting thing. What kitchen would not be complete if it did not have a cookbook? 1883. This is Mrs. Lincoln's Boston Cookbook. And I took a look inside, and the publishing date is 1883. So it's really quite an interesting cookbook. Soft molasses cookies. 1 cup of molasses, 1 tablespoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of soda, 2 tablespoons of warm water or milk, 1/2 cup of butter softened, flour to mix softly. Mix in the order given, dissolving the soda in the milk. Roll out 1/3 of an inch thick, cut in small rounds. Now, it does not give you any cooking instructions. All right, just how to put it together. Underneath is cream cakes. All right, this gives you cooking instructions. 1 cup hot water, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of butter, 1 1/2 cup of pastry flour, 5 eggs, yolks and whites beaten separately. Boil the water, salt, and butter. When boiling, add the dry flour, stir well for 5 minutes, and when cool, add the eggs. This is a stiff mixture. Many find it easier to mix with the hand, and some prefer to add the eggs whole, 1 at a time. When well mixed, drop in tablespoons of a buttered on a buttered baking pan, some distance apart. Bake 20 to 30 minutes or till brown and well puffed. Split when cool and fill with cream. Now you have to remember, this is 1883, and the baking was done in either a coal or a wood stove. Another part that I found quite interested in here, I poked through, under the index, it has a section, and it kind of like flip-flopped clothes on me. And it talks about recipe, what to feed the ill. Oh, here we go. The nurse's course. Okay, beef tea, mushes, gruels, jellies. Yeah, that sounds delightful. I'll drink to that. So, list of utensils needed, general index. So it's really quite a neat publication. Now, one more thing I wanted to show you, and I think I can turn around and maybe not find it. Oh, I have it. Oh, I found it. Egg beater. That's a good, Glenn?
Yeah,
All right.
enlarge it.
This is very cool. Look, it has 2. You know, on an egg beater, we're used to having an egg beater like this. Take a look at this one. Both beaters are in line with one another, with each other. All right? And when you turn it, one turns clockwise and one turns counterclockwise. Actually it has a date on it. There is a copyright, and it says cream whip, patent September 1897. So this is before electric beaters. Now, something else I'd like to show you, pretty well done here. I want to show you the, over here, we have an electric stove. And yes, this is an electric stove, and we wonder why the town of Littleton burns so often. This would plug in. You have to remember that this stove is probably around World War I or prior. So we're looking, let's see, World War I, 1914 to 1917. And these have covers on them, but it has the, do you remember the old heaters that you would, not heaters, but it was like a one, it just had one burner. You could plug it in, and it had a metal coil that went around and around and around, and you had a ceramic shaped thing that went, it looked like a snail, or one of those goes around. And this metal part would go around inside, and when you turned it on, it would turn red, and you could cook with it. But it was also extremely dangerous.
Hot plate.
It was, that's what I'm looking for. Thank you, Glenn. It was a hot plate. All right. Now this here had two plugs, one for the top and one for the oven. And this is what I really like about this stove. All right. Down at the bottom, you can't see but from there, but you can see the, it has the ceramic and it has the metal coils. You would close the oven like this. All right? And this is how you would seal it so you could bake. It has two wing nuts. And this is how you seal your oven. Now, I'm going to guess that this isn't glass, okay? It's mica, all right? So you would seal your oven. There was a thermometer in here, but this only told you the temperature of the outside door. So you had the outside door and you had the true temperature of the oven, and there was no light inside to see how things were going. And this would cause, if you go back to the early 1900s and late 1800s when electricity came to town, you have to remember that we had a lot of electrical fires, that there were a lot of worldwide, because the wires, if they got too close to each other. And another thing too is that people would they would overuse a plug. They plugged many things into one wall outlet, which would then make the wires burn down and make the house burn. Right? Next thing I want to show you is, I'm keeping track of my time here. This is a milk separator, a cream separator. All right, and it's really kind of this is a neat creature. All right, people would pour. I have no idea what this is. People would pour their milk in here. They would turn this. Over here's like a flywheel, so you would get some momentum going. And what would happen is it would spin the milk in here, the raw milk, and you would end up with the milk coming out of this and the cream coming out of here. What you ended up with was skim milk coming out of this. So that's how they separated. Now listen, back in the day when this was used, the skim milk, which we will go pay $2-3 for a gallon, they used to feed to the pigs, okay, because the people, someone's calling me, because the people, the farmers would drink the milk with cream. So this would be skim milk, this would be cream, this was fed to the pigs, this went into your coffee and it was used for cooking. I think that's pretty cool, and we have one. And let's see, where am I going next? I pretty well think that's probably
Milk bottles.
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. I have it on my list and it's the last thing and I almost forgot. All right. Oh, I got a question. Remember this? I remember this when I was a child, when I was a kid. We used to have a gas stove that didn't, my grandmother, we lived with my grandmother for a number of years, that we didn't have a pilot going, so you would turn the gas on and strike a match and light the gas. This would hold the matches. So how many people out there remember that back in the day? Now, remember when milk used to be delivered? Think of how many people had one of these out next to their front door or next to their kitchen door. A lot of rock area, right? And it was, remember, an insulated box? You put it, sometimes they'd even put ice in it and keep the milk cold. So when they delivered it in the summer.
Does that say on the front, Chase Dairy?
Chase Dairy, Littleton, New Hampshire. Yep. How many remember the Chase Dairy? I don't, but how many out there in our viewing audience remember? So that was kind of a quick 20-minute down and dirty on, I want to put back some of these books, there we go. You know, on the kitchen section, I do want to point to this. This is a crazy quilt, all right? And this quilt, it is framed. It is framed, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it goes back, I believe it's about 150 years old. And the neat thing about this quilt, Everett, is it Everett Chase? Everett, okay, I've got a brain cramp, it's not on my list. Very nice fellow, the guy I know, is actually into quilts, and he knows a lot about this. And he said, it is made of some very fine, beautiful fabric. In here, it is Victorian, because you can tell by the patterns. And you can look close enough, you can see the patterns in the fabric. And a lot of times, what he said was, this fabric was made, this is European, by the way, some of this fabric, because it would be brought in boats on ship, and sometimes it would get damaged. And sometimes they would save some of the damaged pieces and sell it as quilt material. Look at this, flowers in it. This might have been a vest, okay, another vest or a dress. So we're looking at probably 1890, maybe 1885, 1890, and it's absolutely pristine condition. So I'm going to take this to an end right now. Thank you for, tuning in. Tomorrow, if I don't blow a brain cramp, I will remember to do a 15, 20-minute program around 10:30. Tomorrow's Thursday, I can do Thursday. Tomorrow 10:30 from my house on this, and we'll take a look at doing a few more programs. I'd like to tell you about Littleton's golf course in the 1930s. Not going to happen today. Probably happen next week. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.